he's out there riding the edge. 'Cause he's different from us. He's gotta be riding the edge. Yeah, that's where you are, hanging 10 in a car, when you're all alone, riding the edge. You know where you stand when you're that kind of man, a man who lives riding the edge. A man who lives riding the edge.
I grew up here in Reading, Pennsylvania. Went to a real small high school just outside of the city. And then went away to junior college for 2 years. Came back here, worked for a couple of years. And I got tired of the old 8 to 5 grind. And since the Chitwood brothers were good friends of mine during my youth, they got a hold of me one day and said they needed some help one summer. And so I came along with them, and I've been doing it ever since. It's about my 8th year with the show. All the things we do are really well planned out. We take all the chances out of our crash work, and precision driving really is just that, precision driving. It's really done with a lot of skill, and we're pretty proud of the skill that we do possess. Obviously, it's not as dangerous as it looks, but we like to try and keep it looking dangerous. It helps the front gate a little bit. But we do it so often, after a while, we've taken all the calculated risks out of it. We just don't, we don't have to take chances, so we don't. We can make it look as complicated and as difficult as we do with relative ease. I'm taking the stuff off so that it doesn't fly off and hit me during the course of the crash. Things like these sun visors, stuff like that can all hurt you if you leave it in the car. And obviously I'm not going to use this for a comfort vehicle, so I don't need it anyway. You can see here the basic difference between my seat belt, which latches together like that, and the standard seat belt that was in the car. My belt's a lot wider. All the stitching's a lot stronger. It's just a more reliable piece of equipment. And in my business, I'm not going to rely on something that I'm not sure is safe. You can see inside of this car, I just took the back seat out of this car, and there lays the seat belts that some poor person paid for a couple of years ago, and they were never out from underneath the seat. I'm sure nobody ever even had them around their waist. Well, a particular crash that I have to do, the seat belt does most of the work. You stiff arm the steering wheel, just try and keep your body relaxed. And the way that the car reacts to the crash, that should be all you need. In the last few years, we've done maybe 4 or 5 feature films, done a couple of James Bond films, and stunt driving for Hollywood movies is basically just a small variation from the type of driving that we do on our thrill show. Almost all the crashes we do in movies are a takeoff of the crashes we do here on the track, and all the skill that a man needs to work in a motion picture, as far as a stunt driver is concerned, can be obtained a lot better through a thrill show circuit than any other way, I think. You're doing the same thing out here every day, and you just tend to become very, very good at what you're doing. Well, I got a call from a man out in Hollywood who had a particular scene in mind where a police car loses control and crashes into a concrete wall. The way that the scene had to be filmed, there couldn't be any trick photography or any special effects or any big, complicated safety harnesses inside the car to protect the driver. So he wanted me to do this crash with just using the standard safety features that are designed into a car, a lap belt, shoulder harness, whatever. And I simply told him a big flat no, that it would be insane to even try something like that. I went out there to do the film anyway, and I thought at the time that they had just written that scene out of the film. When I got to Hollywood and took a look at the script, the scene was still there, but it was changed around a little bit, and the driver was driving a car that was equipped with airbags. So I talked to a few people about it who didn't know very much about the thing, and they said, yeah, we got some consulting people in here, and they've installed a car with airbags, and that's what we're going to use. It'll protect the driver 100%, no problem. So no one had told me about this, so I just let it go by. And about 2 weeks before the stunt was scheduled to happen, Jack Martins from the Allstate Insurance Company stopped out to California and got in touch with me and introduced himself as being the person who was in charge of this airbag crash.
The car will have a crash sensor in the bumper. One's up in the instrument panel. And the idea of this is they're backup systems. In case you should hit a wall or another car with the bumper, then the crash sensor starts here and the second one takes over. If you miss the bumper, it's a velocity-sensitive device, so it really doesn't make any difference. Now you hit the grill of the car, it crushes the automobile, and that sensor up on the dash takes over. So you got one system backing up the other for the inflation of the airbag. Mm-hmm. Now, as we go around here, I can... why don't you sit down?
Well, Jack, where are you going to put these airbags?
They're already there. It's in
here?
the steering wheel, and it's over in the instrument panel below the dash over for the passenger and center front passenger.
How does it come out of here?
Oh, when you get into the crash of enough severity, one bag will pop out of the steering wheel. It opens here on this seam. Another one will open on the other side.
Does it come out and hit me in the face, or?
No, it doesn't come out and hit you in the face. It inflates before you can ever get to the airbag.
Oh, so it only never reaches my body. My body comes into this.
It'll come in later, yeah.
He went about trying to sell me on his airbag system. Took me back to his room, and he showed me several films of some of the research work that had been done on it, some with dummies and some with live volunteers. And it was all very impressive. Showed me a lot of literature about it. And still he hadn't quite sold me on it. So he got me in touch with another stuntman in Hollywood, one that just about every stuntman's accustomed with, Hal Needham, is the fellow's name, and he's probably the busiest stuntman in Hollywood, works all the time, and a real versatile stuntman. He doesn't do any specialty work. He does just about anything, high falls, horse work, automobile stuff. And so I called Hal, and Hal had done a crash for Mr. Martins, I think at 24 miles an hour, which was a little bit slower than they wanted me to do. But I talked with Hal for about 15 minutes, and he said it was one of the easiest things he'd ever encountered, that it was just like falling into a big marshmallow. And so that made me feel a lot better. So I went back with Jack Martins, talked with him a little more about it, and finally he gained my confidence in these airbags.
I'm Jack Martins, Automotive Engineering Director for Allstate Insurance Company. Demonstrating airbag reliability to a motion picture audience of millions was the challenging opportunity presented to Allstate recently. We were invited to work with 20th Century Fox on their production of Moving Violation. Here's a sequence of that film. What makes it unique is this real crash in a self-powered production auto with a live driver. And the driver's only protection is an airbag. The entire production thrilled the citizens of Moorpark, California, who participated in the filming. But unlike many productions, much of the real excitement went on behind the scenes. The crash car was a regular Oldsmobile production model from Allstate's test fleet. At the time of the crash, its odometer had registered just over 45,000 miles. I discussed the crash in great detail with Vic Rivers, a professional stunt driver. He followed our discussions with several practice runs in the crash area. Meanwhile, the high-speed Millikan cameras were being prepared to photograph the actual crash. They produced the slow-motion footage you'll see later. The car was also undergoing preparation for the crash. Special batteries were installed for its camera operation. The spare tire and accessories were removed to keep weight and balance equal to that of a normal production car. Cameras were placed to cover the crash from several angles. The production crew needed all the shots they could get. This would be one scene they couldn't shoot over. Final checks were made of the electrical system and camera alignments. The airbag system underwent normal tests. Final instructions were given to the driver. He was told to duck for 3 seconds after the impact. This would allow the actor he was working for to replace him after the stunt. Here's a look from behind the cameras as the scene began. The squad cars are following a high-speed Carson camera car photographing the stars of the movie. And here's the crash. The speed at the point of impact was over 32 miles an hour. That's the equivalent of a 65-mile-an-hour accident. But thanks to the airbag, the driver exited unhurt. Disbelieving local residents were quick to examine the dramatic evidence of the airbag protection. Driver Vic Rivers was convinced too. He told me the airbag had saved his life in one of the most violent stunts of his career. After the crash, accident investigators from the University of Southern California inspected the scene. They recorded the data as a Level 3 multidisciplinary report. The crash car had been equipped with recorders to measure and validate the forces and speeds at impact. These records prove that airbags had completely protected the driver in a collision equivalent to smashing into a car of equal size and weight at 65 miles an hour. The crash wall was backed up by 33 yards of cement covered to look like a sand pile. This equaled the engineering effect of a standard SAE test barrier. Here's the slow-motion interior view of the crash we mentioned earlier. The high-speed Millikan cameras photographed the scene at 400 frames per second. And played back at normal speed, what you're seeing is about 18 times slower than the speed of the actual crash. Here's the impact as the Oldsmobile hits the barrier under its own power. Now Vic takes his 3-second count. In the final version of Moving Violation, actor Jack Murdoch will be substituted in the driver's seat. Although you won't see it at your local theater, we think this scene is a remarkable affirmation of airbag reliability. This is the first time that the victim of a 65-mile-an-hour equivalent crash has been filmed exiting unhurt through the window of his car. Without airbags, you wouldn't be seeing it now. The crash car was thoroughly analyzed by USC's Accident Research Investigating Team. Their findings, and this short scene from Moving Violation, prove beyond a doubt what Allstate's been proving and saying for years. Airbags work now, today, in the real world, in real crash situations.
We went ahead and tried it. The car had an exotic crash recorder inside it. It recorded some of the stresses that my body went through and the speed of the car and the stresses that the car actually went through. And it turned out that it was the fastest speed into a frontal barrier that a live volunteer has ever participated in. And I got out of the car immediately after the crash with no injuries. And it was just a beautiful experience. I can't ever remember doing a more violent crash than that and sustaining any less shock on my body than I sustained in that one.
A man in his wheels, no one knows what he feels when he's out there riding the edge. Yeah, that's where you are, hanging 10 in a car, when you're all alone, riding the edge. You know where you stand when you're that kind of man, a man who lives right in the edge.